Now, today we're exploring a topic that is both spiritually significant and financially crucial. Those zakatable assets in one's personal capacity. Yes, it is Zakah in focus. And in studio we have Maulana Hashim Kasim as well as Fairuz Muhammad. Now, I'm going to say it. Maybe let me just say who Maulana is. And for those that don't know what his role is at SANZAP, he is the national chairperson. And then, of course, Fairuz Muhammad, the national first deputy chairperson. Now, Zakah, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, is a form of almsgiving and religious obligation for Muslims. It is a means of purifying one's wealth by distributing a portion of it to those in need. But what exactly constitutes zakatable assets? And what are considered as non-zakatable assets? So let's get right into it and understand understand and help you practice zakah with confidence. So as I've mentioned, Maulana Hashim Kasim and Fairuz Muhammad in studio. Maulana, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. How are you, Auntie Jamila?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Missed being here last week.
I trust you are well today.
Shukr Allah.
Barakallah feekum.
Shukr Allah for all conditions. And then we have to welcome our sister Fairuz Muhammad, fresh from Makkah. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Jamila.
We say welcome back, and of course Umrah Maqbool as well, Mabroor.
Both, alhamdulillah.
And I trust it was beneficial, representing SANZAP, is it?
Yes, at the Makkah Halal Forum, alhamdulillah. So it was an amazing conference over 3 days, and because I could obviously attend the conference, alhamdulillah, I could perform Umrah as well. 3 actually, alhamdulillah. So really blessed to have been able to do that.
There's so many more questions I want to ask about your stay in Makkah and Medina, but we've got
different
so
time.
much
Yes.
different time. Yeah, indeed. Well, now let's get straight into it, and maybe just refresh us on those assets that are not zakatable.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Rabbi shrah li sadri ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Yes, Auntie Jamila, it is nice to have Fairuz back, alhamdulillah, teaching and informing the community
Ameen.
About zakah holistically. So what do you pay? Don't you pay zakah on? As simple as that. The question is, on what don't you pay zakah? Remember, first of all, the usul is zakah is based on your excess wealth. Quran says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. They will ask you, what must you pay as zakah? قُلِ الْعَفْ. Tell them to pay zakah on the excess wealth. So your personal belongings, your personal house, your personal houses becomes non-zakatable. You don't pay zakah on it. Your personal cars that you pay, don't pay zakah on it. Even if you have more than one. Whether you have a weekend car and a weekly bakkie and a Friday Jumu'ah car, if it's personal, if your personal use, you don't pay zakah on it. According to Imam Shafi, even your personal jewelry, you don't pay zakah on it. Right? Even if you won the big 6 and the lotto, you don't pay zakah in it because Allah doesn't want that.
Yeah.
Right? So some people say, a non-permissible funds, it is gambling money or stolen money or stolen goods money. They don't pay zakah on that because Allah doesn't want that. Certain of our stones, precious stones, you don't pay zakah on it. Even your paintings in the house, your Persian carpets that you have, those antique cutleries that you have, you don't pay zakah on it. Right? So zakah is not there to make you poor. Zakah is just a simple meaning of zakah is to show that I do care about the next person, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually speaks about a good Muslim. Is that one? وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. That he embraces that in his wealth is a portion that belongs to the poor and the needy.
Shukran so much for that. Now, Fairuz, last week we covered some business assets. what are those assets one could own that could attract zakah?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yes, and Jamila, when we look at these lists of personal assets that could attract zakah, and if we're going to mention them and you may forget, you can just actually go on our website. We've got a zakah calculator that lists all possible zakatable assets that you could own. So that will guide you as well in case you just miss any of them now, and you don't need to call in to find out what the full list is. There is a zakah calculator on our website, very user friendly, and it will definitely be able to assist you, inshallah. So when we look at these personal assets that could attract zakah, and when we look at an ordinary person like ourselves, the one of those assets is cash. So all forms of cash, all forms of currency. Obviously, if you're calculating it in rands, you've got to translate any foreign currency that you have. Just translate it in rands on the day you're doing your calculation. If it's even if it's locked in a 30-day, 3-year investment account, irrespective of why you have the cash, whether you're saving towards Hajj, it doesn't matter why you have the funds. The only thing is that you must own the funds. You can't be paying zakah of wealth that doesn't belong to you. That's also one of the categories that you do not pay zakah on. You only pay on wealth that belongs to you. So all forms of cash. If it's in the bank, just remember, Maulana just mentioned anything that is non-permissible, like riba, interest, just remove that element from the cash. So that is one of the zakatable assets. Another one is investments. If you have investments or you hold it with any institution, even if it's locked in for 3 years, because many times investment brokers tell you, well, only once it's released and matures, you then pay. No. Remember, you made the decision to lock it in. So it doesn't matter for how long you hold it. It still forms part of your zakatable wealth, and you pay zakah on it as part of your list of zakatable assets. Another zakatable asset is that of retirement annuities. So in your personal capacity, we either employed or we are self-employed. If you're self-employed and you want to save towards retirement, generally you've got to take out an RA, a retirement annuity. And that is because, remember, you voluntarily made the decision to invest your money in, knowing that it's going to be locked in until you reach retirement. You will have to pay zakah on the value of that fund net of taxes every single year. So you've got to include that. And then we include any gold and silver that you have. By default, gold and silver in its true form is zakatable. Whether it's in a block, whether you hold it as a Kruger coin, those are zakatable. Maulana just mentioned one of the assets that you do not pay zakah on in terms of gold and silver is personal jewelry for the Shafi'i madhab. But if you're a Hanafi follower, you will pay zakah on personal jewelry as well. And then those are basically some of in your personal capacity that you could own. Well, now in today you have digital assets. So you could own, and a very common digital asset, it's a currency, is what we call Bitcoin. If you're of the view that digital assets are zakatable, then Bitcoin would be zakatable. If you're of the view that these currencies are not zakatable, then you're investing in a non-Sharia fund, or in a currency that's non-Sharia, which means any profits that you make on that would be non-permissible, which means you need to discharge of it. But you will always pay on any capital that you have if it's in a non-Sharia fund. So those are generally the capital, the zakatable assets you can own in your personal capacity.
Just want to go to the WhatsApp line 0786 10 11 12, and it reads as follows. What if the person cannot access the pension fund if he can only draw his monthly amount and cannot access the bulk? Does he still pay on that bulk amount?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So when it's a pension fund and a provident fund specifically, and obviously I assume the person reached retirement because they're accessing their annuity, their monthly income. So when it comes to pension and provident funds, it's not zakatable while you're employed at the company. So while you've been contributing all these years towards this pension and provident fund, the value of that fund will not be zakatable. Now you've reached retirement and now you receive this monthly income. Because it is in a provident fund or a pension fund, that access to that fund is still locked in, which means, and the nature of that fund is because it was in a compulsory nature due to the contractual obligation of being employed. That will never be zakatable, which means you do not pay zakah on the value of that fund. The money that you're receiving through an annuity every single month may be zakatable. and it will only be zakatable if it's still in your bank account on the day you're doing a calculation. So you may receive a monthly income annuity of 10,000. If you're doing a calculation next month, and whatever you've saved, managed, because remember Zakah is only due on surplus wealth. Whatever you manage to save of that annuity income on the day of your calculation, and all the conditions have been met relating to the other conditions of zakah, which is ownership, which is growth, which is the nisab, and whole. Now remember, whole isn't linked to wealth; it's linked to the nisab. If you paid last year, all you have to look at: do you have nisab this year? If the answer is yes, that's all it is. Whatever you have in your possession relating to zakatable wealth, you'll pay on the total zakatable wealth, including the annuity income, what's left of it in your bank account.
Thank you so much for that. Maybe just squeeze in one more question before we take a break, Lukman. So I have been contributing towards a life policy. Is this okay? And do I have to pay zakah on it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know, it's important that we live where we live. We live in South Africa. In South Africa, you need, for many things in life, you need to have a life policy. You want to buy a house, you need a life policy. You want to buy a car, you need to have a life policy. So the ulama is not halal, but it's permissible because there's a need of it, right, to achieve something. So to have a life policy is permissible, and you also have a Sharia-compliant life policies as well. Right. Secondly, do I pay zakah on it? You're not going to benefit from the money. The debt policy is there to pay your debts one day, or to make sure that all debts that you have are paid off, so that you don't send it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with debt. So you don't pay zakah on it because it is not money that is in your possession. It's not money that you have access to. Only when you die, inshallah, Allah give us a nice and a beautiful ending.
Ameen.
But only when you are dead, that money pays out, but it is there supposed to cover for your debts and for anything that you owe anybody, any money that covers that part of it. So there's no zakah on it. Yes, and many of the ulama say it's permissible in South Africa to have a life policy.
Shukran so much for that, Maulana. We are in the series Zakah in Focus. From Sanza, from Maulana Hasim Qasim, as well as Fairuz Muhammad. 0786 10 11 12 is the WhatsApp number, and it says, let's get there. I have 8,000. Let's just have a look quickly. I have 8,000 in my account. Is my zakah still 2.5%? I'm a pensioner.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So remember, the condition that needs to be met before zakah is due on anyone's wealth is that you must own the wealth. It must have potential to grow, so cash does grow. You must have the minimum threshold, which is the nisab. So let's get to that, because that's the third condition which I think may need to apply here.
Correct.
And currently, if you look at the threshold, the nisab of today is around about 11,300 Rand. So if you're not sure what the threshold is, what the nisab is, you can just go onto our website and you'll be able to see what the nisab is, because we update it daily. So if the person only owns the cash of 8,000 Rand and nothing else, which means they don't have any Kruger coins, they don't have any investments or retirement annuities, etc., then if cash is the only wealth that you possess, then you haven't reached the nisab, which means you don't have the minimum threshold of which zakah may be due. And the last condition is that you don't even need to go to the last condition, because all of them must be met. And if the third condition hasn't been met, which is the nisab, then there wouldn't be zakah due on the wealth that you have, on the cash that you have. But if you have other wealth, you've got to add. Remember, zakah is due on surplus net zakatable wealth in accumulation, which means it's cash, like I've mentioned, it's any gold or silver, any investments, etc., not just cash. All of them must reach the minimum threshold of the nisab, which is about 11,300. If not, then you don't have surplus wealth. And then you don't need to pay zakah on that wealth that you have.
I think this is just maybe a follow-on to what we're speaking about the nisab. So a listener says, Assalamu alaikum Maulana and Fairuz. Just a quick background they're giving. I lived in a duplex that I owned. I had an emergency knee op and could not manage the staircase anymore, hence me selling my place. So the plan is to buy a suitable ground floor flat. To date, I have not found anything suitable. I'm renting in the meantime. Now, it will be a year, the end of July only. Should it go beyond July, am I liable to pay zakah on the money I sold it for?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So when we look at that minimum threshold and that nisab, the listener hasn't said whether they've paid zakah before. If you've paid zakah before every year, then even if you receive that sale money 2 days before your zakah valuation date, you pay zakah on total accumulated zakatable wealth, which means you will have to pay zakah on that money of the sale of the property as well. But if you've had you've never paid zakah before, which means you've never reached the nisab. Now you sold your property for the very first time, and like the listener said, only in July that condition of whole would have been met by July. Then remember, July last year was your whole date, your anniversary date, which is very important because every year on that date you'll have to determine whether you have got to pay zakah again. So now in July, you now have to determine what wealth you have in your possession or that you own, add up all of them, including whatever is in the cash in the bank account relating to the sale, whatever you have, times 2.5%. But you're allowed to deduct that minimum or that immediate expenses as well. That net zakatable assets times 2.5% is what you would have to pay on. In July only, not now. But if you want to pay now, you can, if you want to, make a advancement. If you think, okay, no, you will have to pay zakah in July only because you may not purchase a property before then. But a lot of people want to pay zakah in the month of Ramadan. And we recommend it because there's more reward, you're more pious, you're more conscious of, of those in need. Then it would just be an advance payment for the actual calculation that you're going to do in July.
But
Inshallah.
adding on to that is zakah is not only payable in the month of Ramadan.
No. Zakah is payable when you've reached your anniversary date. Then it becomes due. And that is why it's so unique to everybody, because this listener's due date or zakah valuation date is in January, is in July. Mine may be in January, well not January, but let's say Shawwal, and then somebody else's could be in Muharram. And that is why we have to pay zakah through, everybody would pay in some point in their life zakah every single day. Subhanallah.
Maulana wanted to add something?
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's very important, by when people ask these questions,
Yes.
it means they want to pay. At times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us this chance to do good, especially Ramadan. Every day there's a fursa, is an opportunity to do this. So let's take this year of Ramadan. And then last week we've done a simple quick question with a simple answer of the first word of the Quran and the middle word of the Quran and the last word of the Quran. For the sake of Allah, for the love of Allah, be kind to humanity. Right? By paying zakah, it shows your kindness to humanity. Let's look at the hadith of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Irhamu man fil ard, yarhamukum man fis sama. Have mercy and compassion for those on this earth, and those in the heaven will have mercy on you. By paying zakah or paying the correct zakah shows your complete compassion, love, mercy towards the poor. And then Allah in return will show His compassion and His mercy to those who paying zakah, those who from the heaven. Or the malaika that will come to question you in your grave will then have that compassion to you when you are in their space of hisab in kitab. So that's important, that zakah is not only the money that we part from him. It is about your compassion, it's about your kindness, it's about thinking of others, it's about trying to fulfill the commands of Allah, trying to follow the Sunnah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That makes the zakah such an ibadah that holistically it can change my inner self. They say purify your money and purify your inner soul by paying zakah.
Shukran so much for that, Maulana. Does a widow pay zakah?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We get nice rich widows, Right? The husband passed away, alhamdulillah, and we always speak bad about the husband only when he dies, and we say, MashaAllah, he left a beautiful amount of money for his widow. No?
Yeah.
So it's important
Not
that
always.
by being a widow, doesn't automatically gives you not to pay zakah or to receive zakah. A widow is about a person. Does he have the nisab? Yes. Did the husband leave? MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar. You know, there's money for him, for her, MashaAllah. Does the inheritance cover her? Only when she does not have a nisab, or she doesn't have an income, or this, then you don't pay zakah. But, like the previous caller, I only have so much I want to pay.
Yeah.
Let's have that inclination, or the dua, or Allah make me sufficient so that I can also pay zakah. That should be one of our du'as, you know, because as long as you pay zakah, Allah will not put you in the queue of receiving. By giving, Allah put you not put you in the queue of receiving or even begging. So let's have that zeal, or that, a lack of a better word, that eagerness to be able to pay, instead of being the one that looks for every excuse to receive zakah by saying, you know, I'm zakatable, you know, I'm entitled to zakah, right? Look for all the excuses rather to pay. Then classify yourself as a mustahik, as I'm entitled, I have this and I have that. Allah forbid, because as long as you are comfortable in the receiving side, you will not get into the queue of paying zakah.
Inshallah. Shukran for that, Maulana. Now, I have been contributing towards an income protector policy. I will have access to this fund at the age of 66. Do I pay zakah on the capital and profits of this fund? And then the listener also asks, is an income protection cover allowed in Islam?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, answering the question in terms of an income protector policy, so this is just covering, contributing towards a policy for the risk of covering an event that you may not be able to receive an income. Same, for example, like a policy of anything that you're contributing towards covering a risk, like a motor insurance.
Yeah.
You're paying towards insurance with the risk that anything would happen to your motor vehicle, you won't have the money to fix it, and hence the insurance would then cover either to replace your car or fix your car.
Yeah.
So the similar with insurance protector policy, and the individual or the listener said that they will have access to this fund at the age of 66. So while you're contributing to this fund, all it is just an expense on your side. If anything happens, then that is obviously why you're contributing it, and only then would you have based on the conditions of this fund. And one of the conditions of this fund is that you only will have access to it at the age of 66. So up until you've fulfilled all these conditions, which is at the age of 66, will this fund now be the capital contribution as well as the profits of this, will this be zakatable? So whatever the value of this fund is in terms of what you have access to will be zakatable, because now you've met all the obligations of this fund, and now you become the owner of this fund, whatever portion it be, because obviously they would have covered a portion of the risk element if anything should have happened. So whatever you have access to and own, which means you can now withdraw the money, similar to any other fund, that policy or endowment that you would have taken out, would be zakatable on the date, whatever you have left on your zakah calculation date. And is it permissible? I don't know, Maulana can come in from an insurance perspective, because now we have Sharia compliant policies, whether it's takaful, whether it's any other income protector from a Sharia compliant perspective, it would generally be zakatable if it is Sharia compliant. Remember, if it's a non-permissible income policy fund, irrespective whether it's an endowment or any other policy fund, if you're investing in a non-Sharia compliant fund, then only the capital element would be zakatable, not the profits. Remember that part. People assume that because they're investing in or contributing towards a non-Sharia, the whole thing is now not zakatable. The money that you've put in was halal and will remain halal. The element that's not permissible would then be the profits.
It is also it all depends, if a person put halal money in. Allah forbid, inshallah, Allah purify our hearts to do our finances in the most discreet or Sharia compliant way. So can a person have this protector policy? Many of the ulama says yes, because it makes your chances of being that anxious and anxiety. What happened if I don't have this? What happened if I do out of business or out of work? So how do I make it? So based on that, it is permissible to have a protector policy plan.
Shukran so much. My son lost his job, but his wife works. However, it is not sufficient for them. So the listener asks, can I give my daughter-in-law my zakah?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. People look for at times for all the hilas to keep the money in the family. Alright? Remember, your son is responsible for his wife and children. And you as a parent will remain responsible for your children, grandchildren, parents, great-parents, great-grandparents. You will always be responsible to them. So your zakah you can't give to your son. So you're saying, can I give it to my daughter-in-law? First of all, she is working, right? Is she zakatable? Before you give it to her in line, so she can give it to your son.
Yeah.
All right. So, so first of all, your son can't get zakah from you. Secondly, your daughter-in-law can get from your zakah on condition she is zakatable. She's entitled to zakah. She working doesn't mean that she has to pay the bond. It is your son's job. But if you want to give your zakah to your daughter-in-law, it means you have money. Who are you keeping the money for? Your money, your children, your daughter-in-law, it's not your responsibility. But she's going to give it to your son and to your grandchildren. She's going to feed your grandchildren with your zakah. If I pay 2,500 rand zakah for the year, so it means I've got 100,000 rand surplus. Are you so stingy that you don't want to give your money to your child? Astaghfirullah. Charity begins at home. Not zakah begins at home. Ni. Charity, your goodness, your sadaqah, oh God. But if you don't want to give your halal money to your child because I like those big figures in my account. Some people just like the big figures in their account, So I don't want to give the zakah to my child. And I want to give my zakah rather than my own money. Tomorrow you die. And you didn't even enjoy your own money by giving your own money to your own grandchildren, right? You didn't share it with them. Somebody else come in, and the first person that comes in is SARS, death tax, gone is your money. Then somebody else come in, they fight about your money. Astaghfirullah. The best people to share your money with is your own family. The best people to give your zakah to is your extended family. That's what I'm saying. Your charity, your sadaqah should be to your own immediate family first. Your zakah should be to your extended family first. Before you get a nice amount of money with an 18A certificate, a receipt. Nah? And I get the 18 certificate, mashallah, I've given so much. But I couldn't give to my sister's son. Astaghfirullah. I think we should look at it as a way, do I want to give my zakah to make my problems less? Or do I want to give zakah so that somebody can benefit from my wealth, which Allah has kept in my purse or in my banking account? Remember, that zakah is not your own money. It's money that belongs to the poor and the needy. So, rather, Allah give me hidayah that I first act and practice of charity begins at home.
Shukran so much for that. Now, moving on. Assalamu alaikum. If you have Krugerrands, do you pay zakah on it to the value that when it was bought or today's value as its value increases every year?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I'm glad the listener understands that Kruger coins are zakatable because it's obviously in the form of gold. The way we value Kruger coins to ensure from its zakatability point of view, you pay zakah on the weight of the gold. So remember, the rate of gold fluctuates. And like the listener said, it may have been valued at, let's say, 40,000 Rand when they purchased it 4 years ago. But you pay zakah on the value of the Kruger coin on the day you're doing your calculation. And I mentioned earlier on our zakah calculator that is on our website. All you have to do is, in fact, we already have a preempted list of zakatable assets. In there are Kruger coins. So if you have one Kruger coin or a half or a quarter, it's all listed there. And it will give you the value of that Kruger coin. If you just say one, it will push out the value because it has the exchange rate of gold per gram already in there. So all you have to do is just indicate how many Kruger coins you have. But yes, you pay on the value on the day you're doing your zakah calculation, not when you purchased it. Because the value could drop. Next year, when you're doing your calculation again, the value of the gold may not be as high as it. In fact, it's skyrocketed quite a bit in this last couple of days. But it's based on the value on the day you're doing your calculation.
Perfect. Says here, Salams Maulana, if you paid here and there and sold your houses and had many debt, how do you work out debt? I had plenty credit cards. Where do we start? How do you calculate the zakah? So I'm not too clear.
I think they need to do a consultation maybe. And Maulana can maybe sit with them, for example, and then maybe just clearly document, how they need to go about.
Exact figures.
Yeah.
But at times people say,
Can't estimate.
If an estimate. Come with exact figures, don't worry. We don't charge for consultation. We don't put a commission on. We do it solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we do the calculation of zakah of any person.
Maulana, do I pay zakah on the rental income of our property?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So you don't pay on the property, but on the income less the liability or the expense. So you might have a small house, so I rent out the back, the service quarters. All right? But the service quarters actually pay for my electric inside here. Only if there is part of the money left and it's part of the nisab, or if it adds on that last month, add on to the nisab, then you put it in on part of your zakah. But if it is a means of living off it, like some people was like, I've got in the yard a service quarters and I went the house, and that money is now helps me pay my electric and my water and my rates. So there isn't even money left. So whatever is left and calculated, that you work your zakah on. If there's nothing left, money that is gone is gone.
Yeah.
Because you have enjoyed to have that place what you have worked for, and now that place is now amending your income for your lifestyle. And then there is only zakah and the surplus, what's left from the money of the rental income.
Perfect. Shukran so much, Maulana. Just going to squeeze in this last question perhaps. I belong to a pension fund. However, I contribute an additional 3,000 Rand above the compulsory amount. Will this also be classified as non-zakatable assets?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we've, I think, mentioned before, and I think quite a few times, that Provident and Pension Fund contributions and the value of that fund is not zakatable as long as you're employed, at the company.
Yeah.
But it only relates to the compulsory element. So because that compulsory element is due to your obligation, your contractual obligation to the company, that contribution and that fund will not be zakatable. However, if you decide to top it up by a voluntary additional contribution by, like the listener said, 3,000 Rand, you could have directed those funds to a different investment, or you could have started a business, or whatever you could have done with the 3,000 Rand. You made that decision to invest it or put it back into the pension fund. Because that is on a voluntary nature, only the compulsory element is not zakatable. You now need to speak to the broker to find out the contributions that you're making of the 3,000 Rand, what the value of that would be. And that would be zakatable every single year. So that would be similar like an RA. Because the additional amount is actually now exactly the similar principles would apply as a retirement annuity, even though this is a pension and provident fund, because you're contributing an additional amount that's not compulsory any longer.
All right, we'll have to wrap up. So, Feroz, just upcoming.
Yes, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Seminars.
So just our Ramadan packing has started, alhamdulillah. And we're having ladies Salatul Layl on the 9th of March at Haydaf Al Masjid, inshallah. And if there are any other, we actually, in fact, this is the time we encourage people to volunteer and be a part of the activities that we have. So we suggest that they contact our offices and maybe just watch our social media posts to see, where they would like to get involved in, inshallah.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Maybe
Maulana.
Maulana, I'm not sure in terms of our workshops on the Sunday at the different masajid.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We have confirmed 23rd of March for Qulubul Mu'minin, Gudud Masjid.
Yes.
The others just have to just confirm again when they want. But we always make it a point that myself, Feroz, Shaukat, Yasmina, even Shafiq also with, we would go around just, Wallahi, Allah must keep us so sincere, free of charge, doing it, liwajahillah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have, the one is good, just confirmed on 23rd. There's the one in the Boerland, but they didn't confirm up till today yet. We will hear tomorrow or the next day, inshallah.
So the 9th of March is what time?
Salatul Layl.
Oh,
So probably
time, okay.
after Isha sometime. But I think what may I just remind the listeners that we have a online international Zakah webinar that's happening. And I think we're now at this week, Saturday, is going to be the 4th part of the series. So they can still register. And they'll be able to then have access to all the previous sessions as well, inshallah.
Perfect.
So they can still register for the last 3. And it's basically similar to what we're having now, advising on the different principles relating to zakah, zakatable assets, the fiqh, the maqasid, etc., as well as the common, Q&As that we always have.
Perfect. Looking forward to next week,
Inshallah.
ladies and gentlemen. Alhamdulillah. So that was Zakah in Focus with Maulana Hashim Qasim, National Chairperson, and Feroz Muhammad, National First Deputy Chairperson at SANZAF.